Let's talk a little bit about lightsaber price shaming. So, this is something that we'll see particularly in some of these lightsaber threads and announcements and things like that, where usually it takes the form of somebody selling product X and then an individual replies, well, that's way overpriced or that's too expensive. And the thing about price shaming is, that opinion of the individual, it may or may not be true, but, to use a Star Wars phrase, it depends on your point of view. And there's often a lot of factors at play that determine a price. And so really, price shaming is pretty useless, okay? Like it's somebody kind of finding a way to be disgruntled about an item where, they may not even have any intention of purchasing the item. Actually, in most cases, they don't, because they're like, that's way too expensive. And what they get, I don't know exactly what they expect to gain from that. I think they just sort of feel good about almost picking on somebody or, calling them out for their price. And, this is not to say that you won't see lightsabers that are maybe above their, actual value or market value. That definitely happens, you guys. And you'll see it. Sometimes you'll see people kind of overestimate the value of like a Force FX lightsaber, for example, which is the officially licensed lightsabers that are made by Hasbro. Sometimes, especially, some of the ones that are from a few years ago, people may overestimate the price, whatever. And, if they do overshoot the price like that, they overshot the price. And you know what'll happen? What'll happen is nobody will buy the item. So nobody needs to, whine and complain to somebody about the price, because if nobody wants to buy it, nobody's going to buy it. That's just kind of how markets work. And the really strange thing about it to me is it's like price shaming only comes up when there's some type of community in a way. So like, people do that maybe on YouTube or on Reddit or in some different Facebook groups or Facebook marketplace where people will be selling items. Somebody will just kind of hop in there and price shame and then hop out. And, they just, I don't know, they just like to complain about it. And sometimes people will hop in and defend the person, and other times people will just kind of pile on and be like, yeah, this is way too expensive for whatever product it is. And, again, they could be right, but it's still pretty pointless and just, pretty rude, because, again, if something is overpriced, then nobody is going to buy it. And if the seller, actually does want to sell it, they're going to end up lowering the price and kind of figuring out what the market will bear for that price. So that'll all happen naturally. And I mean, you do see this with other products, right? Especially, now we've got such a hot housing market, even though it's been cooling a little bit. But, regardless of the housing market, you'll often have somebody sell a house and they'll be like, oh, I did all these things, did all these customizations, and my house is great, and I should be able to get, back what I paid for it, right? And in some cases, that's just not true. Like if somebody has a swimming pool in their backyard, somebody coming in might just be like, I don't want a swimming pool in my backyard, so I don't value that addition. And it can be the same thing with lightsabers, where somebody could have a very customized lightsaber, very expensive type of lightsaber, and then, they can expect to, or, have the expectation that they'll recoup all of their money for this very specialized item. But in reality, people aren't going to buy it. And what'll happen is, they might try pricing it that way. And then when nobody buys it, they'll either decide, well, I guess I'll just keep it, or they will come down in the price. But again, these things happen naturally. So we don't really need people kind of trolling and just like, whining in all sorts of different threads about the price of this lightsaber or that lightsaber. flip side of that is, there's so much artistry in some of the lightsabers, and, some of them can be very customized, very handmade. There's a lot of labor put into them. And, how do you put a price on art? One person is willing to pay X amount and another person is willing to pay Y. So, that's just kind of how art is. Art is subjective that way. And some lightsabers are certainly extremely artistic. Another thing is just, even the production costs, okay? Like the production costs for lightsabers are going to widely vary. So it depends on kind of the types of materials. So the materials cost, it depends on however the labor costs are valued, which can, again, range a lot. But it also depends on the manner in which the lightsaber is produced. So if somebody does a micro run of hilts, it'll be more expensive per hilt quite often, because it's just a smaller run for a machine shop to do, for example, than kind of some of these larger, sort of more mass-produced sabers. They get more of a bulk rate. So there's all sorts of reasons that prices can be different, whether the lightsaber is brand new or whether it's, secondhand. Either way, the prices can range a lot. But, you think about it, how often do you go into a store and be like, oh, all the books in this store are too expensive? Like if you went to any bookstore you can think of, would you go in there and kind of have your hands on your hips and do that? You could try, but what would it get you? That's the price that the bookstore sets their prices at. And if nobody buys it, maybe it'll end up in the clearance section. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit because you just see this come up, time and time again. And it's unfortunate to see it. I think prices are going to normalize eventually, if somebody has it way overpriced. So it's really not something that most people should worry about. And, there's a lot of factors they may not know about what goes into the pricing to begin with. So feel free to comment below. What do you guys think about price shaming with lightsabers or any other type of product? I'd love to hear from you.